Hey guys, Robbie K coming at you with yet another movie review. And tonight, we do one of those movies that when I come out, I have to honestly say, what the heck did I just watch? Welcome to Robbie's Movie Reviews. And again, we thank you very much for choosing us for at least a hopefully objective-based review. Now, if you're new to the channel, first of all, thank you very much for giving me a shot. More importantly, welcome. Let's explain how it kind of runs down. We break this up into essentially three components. We do what the trailer kind of shows us what it's about, do a quick and dirty review for those looking to get out of here faster, and then finish up with, of course, a little more detailed review that I'll try to do my best to concise. So let's go ahead and get started, as tonight we look at Midsommar. Now, what the heck is Midsommar? Well, I gotta still ask my question to that as well, ask that question as well. But essentially, it's brought to you by the same person who made Hereditary, a horror cult classic about a woman named Dani, who after a traumatic opening, her boyfriend, his friends, and her decide to go to Sweden, or at least a part of Sweden, where fun, frolic, promise, and who knows what else is hoping to wait in the bins. But of course, everything in this gentleman's imagination is very interesting. What does that mean for us? Well, more likely a horror experience you'll never forget. That's about all I can say, as Dani and friends soon learn the hidden horrors that lie in the beautiful and never-ending daylight villa of the Midsommar region. Anyway, what did I think of it? Well, I gotta be honest in that this movie does manage to deliver the shock factor, as well as the horrifying sights that I think its predecessor did last year. Midsommar is definitely the horror film festival of those that are looking for a little less stereotypical formula and ready for shock factor. It does not shy away from the rated R component that it has, and is quite honestly one of the creepiest and sort of visually disturbing movies I've seen in a very long time. It's got a little bit of comedy to help break up what's a very dark movie, and it is it's 2.5 hours long. I know Endgame was longer, but this one felt like it was 4 to me. So you gotta be one of those people that is totally in to the very shock factor, melodramatic visual. The more unique and horrifying the visual, the better. But I will honestly say that it is a ritualistic dive into the cultures that this world can sometimes still hold in its wings, as well as the unique aspects that come with celebrating life in this film. Definitely not for the faint of heart or stomach, because I'll tell you that there were several times people were getting up to leave because of the disturbing parts. And while there are a few movies that still go above and beyond in horrifying you in terms of gut-churning visuals, this one will stick with you based on all of the props and visuals that come with it. In terms of what I've got to give it, well, it's difficult for me to say, because this blends artistic, which of course I'll give them props for, with an attempt at a story. And when push comes to shove, for my personal taste in terms of a horror film, when you throw all the stuff I'll be talking about later, Midsommar probably gets about, I guess, a 7.5 for me in terms of a horror, and that's mainly because of uniqueness and breaking the mold. Movie overall for me in general, though, I'm gonna probably give it about a 5.5 or a 6, and more on that later. But essentially, this is a movie that just definitely did not quite entertain me as well as I was hoping the horror movie did, or as well as Hereditary did for me. But we'll get into that later. If this is where I leave you, remember that my scores are as best objective as I can be, but there's more details that need, and I gotta be careful with how much, because I promise spoiler-free results. But essentially, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much for kind of sticking with it. And any constructive criticism, likes, and subscribes are greatly appreciated. If you're deciding to stick around for the detailed reviews, then here we go. I'm going to again do my best to be spoiler-free. So in terms of for Midsommar, where are we going to go with it? Well, we got to start with the acting, because everybody has the creepy nature down. The girl who plays Dani, I gotta say that for all the complexity that the character had, well done. A combination of creeped out meets emotionally emotionally scarred meets just hysterical. She does it very well to craft a character that, while there are some annoying directions the director took, I think comes off very well into a person placed in the situation. It's about all I can really say because everybody else is so secondary character that I can honestly say that this acted as a village to play a creepy village. So yeah, good. In regards to it, though, some of the other effects that work for this movie is it's creepy. Ari really knows how to take the imagination, figure out the horrors that exist in this world, and throw it at you in full effect. It is creepy. It is very, I guess, mentally scarring, and it sticks with you. So I guess that's good when a horror movie is able to do that, because it's accomplished its goal of the actual horror. So, okay, awesome components of that. The music, the sound editing, the costumes, the look, the development of the setting, all of those are kind of likes to me, and it boils down to they crafted a world that is very freaky without going too much into the ritualistic cheesiness that sometimes comes with the genre. Now, while it's certainly not perfect, again, guys, it works, though, because, again, it's something different and realistic, and that probably is what makes the creepiest component of it. So, you kind of give or take with it, and that very much works. I can say that you can see the pieces setting up. So, again, that's good directing and imagination that you can kind of take a world and gradually build it and slowly, surely introduce the pieces of the puzzle and sort of bait the characters to which are going in, while also still sticking to sort of the culture that I think this is trying to represent. Now, when I was doing my research before I figured out anything, it was sort of pagan, and I understood that there's some other Nordic and Gaelic components written into it. But to be honest, I don't really know which one. I didn't do that much research on it, and I haven't read the synopsis yet to give you the full details. Again, it works for me in terms of how well it was built and how much it stuck to the world. So kudos to that. That's about all the likes that I can say in terms of what I enjoyed about Midsommar, in terms of how the horror movie accomplished its goal of being creepy. Now, where are the areas of improvement for me and the areas I just did not like? Okay, well, first of all, the disturbing component. This gentleman who directs and writes these things has certainly got an imagination for the wicked and disturbing. And while that may be his passion, and while he can definitely say that this is a discretion, for me, that is not what makes necessarily the whole entire movie. And I just don't think Midsommar did quite as well with the story as Hereditary did. For me, I can honestly say that the story component of it really suffered for me, because the characters weren't as well integrated. I don't think there was as much mystery, and you know that something's coming, and that's pretty much the only thing that kept me into it, to see how deep the rabbit hole of disturbing images essentially went. Now, effectively what comes with it is, effectively I can say that I just got bored with the movie. The pacing was not fun, and for 2.5 hours of sitting there, you got to be really into it to see sort of the wicked nature of it, and the symbology, and how the artistic representation of the culture comes into play. If you can appreciate that, then you're not going to mind the 2.5 hours and the disturbing visuals. But if you're looking for a little more entertainment and a little more of that pacing to make a story, this is definitely not the movie for you. Like I said, 2.5 hours, it felt more like 4 for me. That wasn't the key thing. I can honestly say that a lot of the characters, again, unlike in Hereditary, did not quite get the development. Most of them were half-hearted sort of tools that you really didn't like, whereas in Hereditary, you started wondering what exactly was going on in each of the characters. Who was going to be the person to break? Who was going to be the one to start all the trouble? This one, yeah, you kind of knew who all the people were going to be, and as the mind-numbing and disturbing visuals start to drop into play, you honestly just don't like half these characters because they're not developed well, and they're more comedic fodder. And while the comedy did work at times, it just wasn't enough to save. There wasn't enough to save the movie for me. Now, in regards to anything else about this movie, like I said, a predictable ending that you know is coming based on the visual references. Yeah, that's not my kind of cup of tea. So I can say that if you can piece everything together, again, the goal is how dark can your imagination go, and are you willing to see that? Because that's the only thing keeping me into it. Outside of that, I guess, like I said, the elements work, everything else. So I guess let's just sum it up, because there's not much else I can say about the movie. The truth is, Midsommar is just not the film for me. I think that in terms of the works I've seen by this director and writer, Hereditary is the better film because it's creepy, it's freaky, but at least has a pace that's sort of engaging with enough of a mystery to try to figure out, even though the second act wasn't for me. And I guess that's one final area of improvement. What is up with nudity in this director? Midsommar, if you remember back in Hereditary where the random naked scene sort of jumped in, then that might be your cup of tea. For me, it definitely isn't. And Midsommar just took it one step further, and I really didn't need to see half the stuff. So I guess when you look into it again, Midsommar just is not as complete. It went more for the disturbing visuals, images, and cultural representation that this guy just seems to love writing stories about. And wasn't that entertaining. A pace that just doesn't work, and characters that just aren't as gripping as what we saw in his earlier work of last year. Midsommar is definitely for those that want a little slower dive into cultural representation and sort of getting into the mindset that comes with these kind of rituals and cultures, and instead maybe pick Spider-Man or something else a little more engaging and wait for this one. I would strongly recommend not seeing this one in theater, but that's just me. But if you need that horrifying, visually disturbing component, this is the movie for you this week. Anyways, guys, you heard my scores again. Because of originality, artistic symbolism, and again, dives outside of the normal molds, it's getting the 7.5 in terms of its genre. But if you're looking more so for an entertaining film and movie overall, that's where 5.5 to 6 for it. And that's just my take on it. Anyways, guys, greatly appreciate it. Again, like, subscribe, give me constructive criticism. Yes, I hope I didn't hurt anyone's feelings. Again, the scores are just my take. And this is just my review and analysis, but I do my best to kind of say what the general audience was and curtail it to those who would enjoy this movie the most. Anyways, guys, this is Robbie K signing out. We'll talk to you later. Bye.